Good morning, Mr. Mayor. Good morning, councillors. Good morning, members of the public. Good morning to the press. Good morning to staff. We are here today to hear feedback on the draft Ashburton Domain Development Plan. And I have one apology from a councillor, Councillor Wilson. Thank you, councillors. Do the councillors have any questions on the format of this, or can we hear the first submitter? There being no questions, I'll call on Mr. Reich to come forward on representing the Ashburton Bowling Club. And councillors, it's page 27 of the full submission document. Mr. Wright, can you please turn your mic on? You've got it there in front of you. Yeah, good, because we'd love to hear from you, and also we are live to air, so the people of Ashburton District can hear you as well, or anyone that clicks onto the website.
Please bear with me. This is a complete new experience for me. A very good one.
You'll be fine. You'll be fine. You'll be fine.
Good morning, Mr. Mayor and councillors. My name is Joe Reich. I thank you very much for giving me this opportunity to speak to you on behalf of the Ashburton Bowling Club regarding the 30-year draft Ashburton Domain Development Plan. With the Bowling Club not being included in this plan, we have gone through different things before. I could say you a lot regarding the history of our club, but I think we can forget that because I think you're all very much aware how long the club has been there and the history of it all when the club was started before the 1900s. What I would like to speak on would be the lease that the club has with the council, which is a non-renewable lease, and expires on the 30th of June 2028, which is not renewable, and according to this lease, the land goes back to the lessor, the Ashburton District Council, including all improvements without compensation, which of course will be our very well looked after and valued clubhouse. In my personal opinion on the plan, the plan to move us from where we are is because of this and what the designers had for the planning. I have had a short informal meetings with 4 councillors whom none had ever seen the lease and think were most surprised they would lose these club rooms complete with very serviceable kitchen, bar, toilets, seating for 128 people, and which according to the draft plan would become a cafe with outside seating, and as the plan states, could be used for meetings or private functions. I think that most of you would agree with me, a cafe in a domain, to my thinking, would be a white elephant. As you know, we and our fellow bowlers of the past have done an enormous amount of work within our 4 fences to have our grounds looking the way they are at present. When I asked the previous mayor if council had a budget to shift us, the direct answer was, Hamish will vouch for that, it was no. There was no budget. And unfortunately, our bowling club does not have the enormous amount of finance to enable this plan, which could be an estimated of $1 million plus. Now, regarding our membership, some of our bowlers have been playing at our club for 25, 35 years. Some have started a bit younger than what the majority do. But also the main generally is being played by players that have just retired. Most have played other sports, but now find age is catching up and find it a good way to exercise as well as a social network within the club. Also, our ladies tend to join once their children have left home, and they love the challenge and social life of the club and outside clubs locally, as well as players from the wider Canterbury area. I think the way council has taken the democratic way and taken it to the people to have their say was commendable. But by the look of the submissions received, the people have not shown a lot of interest. I personally cannot quite understand why a hub is needed. As to me, the whole domain is a hub. But if one has to be included, my personal idea for the placement of the hub would be to build this on the same side as the playground. Mainly, as I've seen it many times, mainly for the safety of the children. There's mowers go across that track, backwards and forwards. There's people come in with speed. So as I say, on the side of the playground, mainly for the safety of the children, as they would not have to cross the road between the proposed hub and playground. My idea would be to build this at the domain end of the road coming in from Walnut Avenue and in line with the current playground. And I think that, with respect, we are in your hands to not support us in our endeavour to stay where we are. Also make us with regret to close our club. I thank you, Mr. Mayor and Council, for giving me the time to present this report and ask you to please to consider to leave us where we are and give us a new lease. Thank you very much.
Well, thank you very much, Mr. Wright. Councillors, do you have any questions? Councillor McMillan.
Thank you, and thank you for coming along and making your submission today. Just wondering, how many members do you have at the club at the moment?
85.
85. And is that a normal average? Does it sort of fluctuate a bit?
It balances.
Yeah.
It balances.
But 85.
You may get, like last year, we had 2 pull out, but we had 5 come in.
Oh, okay.
At the moment, we've got 2 that were members up until about 5 years ago, but they had teenage boys playing soccer, so Dad had to give up the bowls to do the soccer thing. He has now finished with that. The boys have grown away from him, and he is coming back again this year, so you get fluctuate.
And I supplementary as well. And how many days is someone down there playing bowls? Is it 7 days a week or?
Not 7 days a week, no. Our program book comes out probably within the next 3 weeks, and it includes all our local tournaments, but also all our district tournaments. Like Ellington may have a tournament on next Friday or Saturday or Sunday. We will go there as many as we can, and the same with any other of the club, Methven, Hines, Rakaia, Hampstead and Ellington. The ladies, as far as their championship games are concerned, the ladies have got set days. They play their championships on Tuesdays and Thursdays, and they normally start round about 9:30 and go through till 2:30, 3 o'clock, and they play off as they go along.
Thank you.
Okay, Councillor Brown.
Joe, good to see you here. My question is, it's a 30-year plan we've got sitting there. Yeah, we're
Yes.
looking at 30 years ahead.
Yes.
Not what happens tomorrow or next year or in 2028. If the option is there for the bowling club to be shifted to another place with financial help or whatever happens, is that an option for you? Or is it just the spot you've got now? Now,
Well,
I don't want to kick you out of the Ashburton domain, but if we decided to use the plan as it is, and we like to bring you to the other position, would it be acceptable?
No.
So you just like the place you had?
Can I give you a reason for a start?
Yes, you
Why
can.
good
That's what I'm
reason?
asking.
I think that you most probably be the last to agree with this, that in the other place, the old camping ground, you'd have to cut a lot of trees down because the greens will be shaded by trees. They wouldn't be in the sun like they are now, and they have to be in the sun. We need the sun on them. That's the only way they survive. And the other thing is that the clubhouse, it's not really, we don't even call it the clubhouse, it's a lounge. It's our lounge. It's fully carpeted. It's got caterers think the world of the kitchen. It's got everything in it. It's on a concrete floor. Can't be shifted.
But I'm talking 30 years, so not, you know. And like I said, if we build new or something like that, that's what I'm talking about. Is it the position? Because we can change. You know, trees can come out, especially if they're getting older. There's no reason for why not. My real question is it the spot you like to keep, or if we can give you a similar spot somewhere else in the domain what will work quite well, would that be a possibility?
That would have to go, I'm sorry,
Yep.
I would not like to answer that directly on my own. This would have to go through the committee to decide whether they would be happy. Personally, I would not. I suppose I feel very strong within the position that we are, mainly because of our forefathers, what they have done. When you read in the things that were done when they first started to put that green in, it kept sinking. And the then Borough Council gave them something like 150 loads of dirt to bring it back up to a solid, and all this sort of thing be going on. There's so much history that, no, personally, but the committee may decide otherwise.
Thank you, Joe.
That gives a nice segue to my question, if I may, Mr. Chair. We're talking about volunteer hours in the bowling club, obviously for over 120 years, but can you give me an idea of how many volunteer hours go into the maintenance of the bowling club and the greens, say in a month or a week? Or?
Well, I would say that our greenkeeper is there, especially during the season, every day. We've got 2 greens. If he has a tournament on a Saturday and we start at 9 o'clock, the greenkeeper would be there before 7 o'clock in the morning, and he will have mowed the green in the afternoon before, the day before. He would spend 2 hours rolling 1 green. At the moment we are laying a new top on number 1 green, mainly because the thatch on number 1 green has got so thick that he has to roll it for 2 or 3 hours and gets it up to a speed that we like, say 17, 18 seconds. But within an hour, 2 hours, it's back down again because the thatch works back up again. So on voluntary hours, greenkeeper, probably 30 hours a week, voluntary work. Our green superintendent, she would spend probably 20 hours a week on there. Every Wednesday, there is a roster of mowing the surrounds, and that is rostered with 2 members, and they have to do it before 3 o'clock in the afternoon, and they go surrounds and will do all that. And then there's quite a thing with Murray Anderson having a farm and having a dead hole has come in very, very handy over the years, because he has saved us a lot of money by taking all our clippings and everything away, which is constantly, he could be there twice a week taking rubbish
So
away.
it's been a huge investment, big for the club
Yes,
to maintain it.
yes, yes.
So it's more than a green and a club
Oh,
room too.
definitely, definitely. Ladies doing the gardening. There's 2 or 3 ladies that are constantly going there to do gardening.
Mr Mayor?
Thank you, Mr Chairman. Welcome, Joe, and thanks for a great submission. Just a couple of questions. The lease expires 2028. When did the current lease start?
Currently started in 2007.
7. Okay, thanks for that. And if council paid to move you to a new premises and they paid for all the costs of relocation, would that make any difference? Or would you want to stay where you are?
As I said before again, Mr Mayor, I would prefer to stay where I am. And I think there could be a few, but I can't answer for that question hasn't come up at committee. I could certainly, I think the majority of members would want to stay where they are.
Stay where you are.
Yeah, yeah.
Thank you.
Okay, Councillor Rawlinson?
Thank you, Joe, for your submission. Just my question was around the use of the greens, and that you've got your set days where you have matches and things. On days where there's nothing set down, can members just roll up for social bowls as well?
Oh, definitely.
So it's a 5-day, 6-7 day a week operation.
We have social members who will play on a Saturday afternoon and on a Tuesday and Thursday afternoon, and just have a roll up. They pay $2 in, and they have a roll up for a couple of hours and have an afternoon tea. Any day of the week, there will be sometimes only 1 person, sometimes 10 people just practicing having a roll up backwards and forwards.
So in the summer, it's basically 7 days a week
Yes,
that's used.
yes.
Great, thank
Yeah.
you. Thanks.
And especially in the summer, like we have a sponsorship from Toyota, which we've had for years. And we have 6 Friday triples, and this Friday triples is a very unique program. It was set up quite some time ago by Mr. Watson, and we fill both greens. We have 6 of them. Allenton have 6, Hammersay have 6. When they're played with us, the tournament convener will have 96 players. Both greens will be full.
Councillor Lovett?
I've just got one question. The general public, can they come in and have a game of bowls while you're there? Have you got spare sets, and do you take them off the street?
I could give you a good example. Before the end of last season, I was there, which I go quite often, around about 2-3 o'clock in the afternoon to have a practice. I go a roll up and back. And I had 3 Indian couples looking over the fence and sort of gesturing, "Can we come in?" I said, "Yes, come in." So they stood behind me and didn't know anything about bowls. What do you do and all the rest of it. Well, within a quarter of an hour, they all had a bowl in their hand, and they all had a go, and they go back. And we get that quite often. And if anybody comes in, yes, they're only too welcome. We've got something like 40 sets of spare bowls up in the locker room. And anybody, we encourage it. We encourage it. Could be we picked up a new member off the street that came from Oamaru, and they were shifting to Ashburton, and he said, "Oh, it's beautiful in here." I said, "Well, I've got an entry form right in the club room here." An hour later, he was a member. Just how easy it can happen. We do make them very welcome.
Well, that's great, and I've just never seen any signage out, and you never knew whether you could come in or not, and yeah, that's what I was thinking, if there was signage out there, perhaps we'd come and have a wee watch.
Well, with our open day that we had, on the same day that you had the information day, we had the two girls from Nelson Building Society come to have a look. And they decided to get a couple of bowls and had a bowl. They said, oh, we'll be back next season. We'll probably just join as social members, but we can go after work, 4:30, we can come along and have a roll up, and this the sort of thing that's needed. We have contact at the moment. I have contact with 3 of the schools, St Joseph's School, Borough School, and the Timmel School. And they're only, at the moment, they would love to get their 13-year-old, 12, 13-year-olds to come along. Bowls Canterbury will supply, and they have got an officer which will take it round, of smaller bowls for younger people. And they start off with playing with those. And the only problem at the moment is that we said we would not want any more than 25 at the time to control it. And of course, busing becomes a bit of a problem. But we may be able to iron that out next season.
That's very encouraging.
Councillor McMillan.
Thank you. This is hopefully last question. On the proposed timeline and the plan, we're looking at 2035 for the hub to come in and the bowling club to be moved according to our plan here. So if your lease is due to run out in 2028, has the club discussed how long you would like to renew the lease for, extend the lease if you can?
10 years.
Another 10 years, so that's looking at 2038. Thank you.
10 years or thereabouts.
Mr. Wright, one question from myself that we're not discussing today, but you brought it up in your submission about the rubbish. Do you not have the council rubbish bins at the bowling club?
No.
Thank you.
No, we have 8 or 9 bins, but one of our members, and usually our greenkeeper, will take them to the recycling plant, and the rubbish, Murray takes the rubbish away, but Russell Lowe, one of our good members, brings a double trailer, and all the bins go on that, and then the 2 of them will take them to the recycling.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Wright, for your submission, and I now call on Mrs. Wright to come forward.
Thank you very much.
Good morning, everybody. Mine is very short. I wish to speak on the retaining of the Ashburton Bowling Club on the existing site in our domain. The club brings many people to our domain from all over the country. Our forefathers had the foresight in their planning to cater for all our community, both young and old. Not only the flora and the walkways to be enjoyed, but the physical sporting activities of our citizens, from tennis, croquet, netball, cricket, hockey and lawn bowls. And sadly, some of these have already gone. Our domain is well used by a great section of our community for walking, biking, picnicking, plenty of open spaces already available for youngsters to play and toddlers to paddle and swim. But the domain must continue to be for all our community, and the bowling club is a large part of this and is very well established and well maintained. So why remove it at considerable and unnecessary expense, and why change something that is not broken and is working very well indeed for our community? Thank you.
Thank you. Questions, councillors? Mr. Mayor.
Thanks, Judy, for a great submission. Just one question on the parking. I noticed in your submission you talk about parking and lack of it. In the plan, there's talk about parking over on the old basketball courts, I think. Would that solve your situation for parking, if that happened?
It may do, but that's a long way away from where we are. We do have a great deal of trouble parking, and quite frequently we have bus loads of bowlers coming in, and that is a real problem as well.
Okay. And you also mentioned about the paddling pool, leave it where it is.
I did.
Yeah, great. Got that on board. Thanks.
Further questions? Thank you very much,
Thank
Mrs.
you.
Wright. Just before I call Mrs. Kilworth, I'd like to take the liberty of asking the head of the domain, Paul, what happens to the other rubbish in the domain that is collected? Like there are some rubbish bins there.
Yeah.
Who looks after
The council,
those?
sorry, Mr. Chairman, the council staff clear that daily, and that's taken to the transfer station.
So, okay, so as I understand it, the rubbish is picked up from the various bins but the bowling club rubbish is not picked up.
Yeah, it'd be quite normal for lessees to look after their own utilities and services.
Thank you. Mrs. Kilworth, would you like to come forward, please, and welcome? Councillors, Mrs. Kilworth's submission is on page 156. Robin.
Yes, thank you. When I reread that submission, I thought, oh dear, that sounds very, very blunt. So I apologise if it does. However, this morning I just want to concentrate perhaps on one particular part of the domain, not really highlighted in my previous submission. And that is, I'd like to talk about the open space in the domain. Is that in order, Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
Thank you. So I'm fortunate really to have lived opposite the domain for many years, and so I have perhaps some particular insights from the insight of a resident, and the opportunity for over all those years to experience the activity that goes on in the domain. The open space in the domain is very multi-purpose, with sporting activities and passive recreation for adults and children being used for a large variety of activities. Some of those for long and some of those for short periods. So over the period of a year, there will be concerts and pipe band competitions, circuses and gypsy fairs, organised sport. And each of these activities has its needs catered for. There will be annual single school athletic sports, combined school sports, the county sports, the schools and colleges exchange programs, and the house sports days. They all take place at a convenient time for them and with significant assistance of the open spaces staff. That be applauded. Over the past 20 or so years, we've seen the hockey turf and the tennis courts apply to the council for the use of land for their particular needs, and they fit well in their locations. However, those would not have been envisaged 30 years ago, which is the life of this plan. They wouldn't have been envisaged before they were proposed, and I believe it would be difficult today to envisage what might be the particular needs of sporting bodies in that time frame in the future. What I can say with certainty is that the open space currently afforded by the domain is precious to the community, and this plan seeks to retain it, which is to be congratulated. This passion was in evidence when the domain was a possibility as a site for the now EA Network Centre, and some members will recall the community was loud and clear. Because of the regard the community has for this open space, the protection given to it, I would submit, should be greater than any other open space zones, and it should prevent activities encroaching on it. I would suggest that the current rules may not be sufficient to contain the sort of creep that can happen in small amounts and may need to be reviewed with ultimate protection in mind. It's always a balancing act for councils to plan ahead and to develop drafts built on sound principles. I recall the Tynwald Domain Development Plan attempting to achieve the same balance and experiencing some considerable resistance. In my view, it is difficult to achieve for a long-term period, this balance. I believe there will be requests for activities of a sporting or recreational nature to be sited on their own exclusive plot in the Ashburton Domain over the next few decades. There may be existing activities, sporting or otherwise, whose organisations are just unable to continue to resource their activity, and so that affords the opportunity for their area to become available for others to take over. Or on the other hand, activities sometimes become so popular that they need to be relocated elsewhere in order to expand. Currently, there are sporting organisations which have been accommodated in the domain for many years, and suggesting that any one of them might be relocated does not take into consideration the huge efforts which members of the community have made to provide the courts or greens or turf which are fundamental to their sport. I would urge the council to reconsider this aspect of the plan, unless of course it is the council's intention to resource it. It has been a pleasure to observe over the lockdown period that the activities which the founding fathers would have envisaged taking place in the domain actually were evident almost every day. So the open space was used by families to have their own soccer, rugby, athletics, cricket, picnics, etc., as well as the games of tennis and one-on-one basketball on those courts. Walking, jogging and cycling were of course most popular, with an estimated double, maybe 3 times the numbers, using the domain for their daily exercise. In conclusion, I think the council should not be too prescriptive in the zoning of sports activities in the plan, but at the same time give thought to the greater protection of the open space, which has multiple uses and provides more opportunity for large numbers to enjoy. I have faith that future councils will be better able to judge whether an activity should be cited at all in the domain, and if so, where should it go? But only if the bar of protection of the open space is set high. I ask you all to seriously consider greater protection for the open space of this jewel in the crown, for the community to enjoy in whatever way is appropriate in the future. Thank you for the role you undertake as councillors and for this opportunity to speak to my submission.
Thank you, Councillor Kilworth. Questions, councillors? Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Mrs. Kilworth, a great submission, and we'd expect nothing less. Just one question on your submission. You talk about we talk about putting a pathway along Walnut, the length of Walnut Avenue, and you say it detracts from the open space character and not do it, and that's good. But I've reading through the submissions from other people, and I know there's one in there could be more, where they do want a path because they've seen, I think it's mothers with pushchairs on the road because they can't go down I presume they can't go down the grass.
There's a very, very wide footpath on the other side.
There is on the other
Mr.
side,
Mayor.
yeah.
Yes.
So you think that would be satisfactory for them to use the other
Well,
side?
I do, yes.
Yeah, okay, thanks for that.
Councillors, apparently there's been some feedback through the Chief Executive. Can we speak more directly into our microphones, please? Apparently they're having trouble, those in front of a computer, to hear us. Councillors, Councillor McMillan.
Thank you. Good morning. You haven't mentioned it in your submission, but I'm thinking because you live quite close to the domain, a few people have mentioned about a pedestrian crossing or a safe crossing area across Walnut Avenue from the school across to the domain. Do you think that's needed? Do you see any problems with that? Do you
Well,
see that
if I remember correctly, there is one at Rosebank, and I remember when it was when the decision was made to put it there after submissions from Rosebank. It really is not well used. I think that they're probably, if you took the numbers, as council tends to do when it wants to put in a safe area in the middle of a wide road like that, that would be the best way to answer your question. I'd be hesitant to give an opinion on that without the numbers. Personally, I mean, I'd say hundreds of students walk on the footpath outside our place, both to and from college. The numbers that go across go to their cars quite often, and not so much now that the pool is not there, but I wouldn't have thought that it was a huge problem, but I think do the numbers first and we'll find out.
Further questions? Councillor Brown.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Robin, thank you.
Hello.
You say it much better than I ever can do, so, but it's really good. I noticed in one of your points you say there is no review periods in this plan. You're correct, but it certainly will come in. Like
Yes.
every
Yes,
project, you need your review points somewhere. So
yes,
that
yes,
is certainly a point we're looking at.
yes,
Thank you.
Thank you.
Councillor Lovett.
I'm just going to ask you, I quite like the way you talk about the protection for the heritage of our domain. Do you feel that with the plan we're doing that we're not taking that on board, we're going too far the other way?
No, that's not really what I'm saying. What I'm saying is that there is a finite amount of land that can be used for open space. There is open space dotted around Ashburton town and indeed around the district. It is all in the district plan. It is all afforded the same level of protection. If council really believes that this is the jewel in the crown, then I'm asking you to look at a greater level of protection for this piece of open space. Okay? Now I know that the development plan is not the final plan, and that the process is that it goes then to have a greater level of validity into the district plan, I'm assuming, because that's the way things have happened in the past. So I'm assuming that it will find its way into the district plan at some stage. So when it gets to the district plan, that's where I believe it needs its own level of protection. And so that's really what I'm asking for. It is protected to a degree, but it's open space A. I think that all of it is open space A, but I stand to be corrected. And you can still build small buildings on it, but all those are prescribed in the district plan. And you might think that the first one or two small buildings were all right. But creep is something when you've, and I see Mr. Chairman nodding his head, creep is something under the planning rules and zoning rules that has to be carefully watched for, because it can make a nonsense of what you originally intended. So
Thank you, Mrs. Kilworth. Thank you for using your years of experience in district planning to suggest and advise us on a course of action. I think it's appropriate. Thank you.
thank you very much. Thank you all.
I now call on Leonie Spagero. Welcome. Councillors, the full submission is on page 245. The floor is yours.
Your Worship, councillors, ladies and gentlemen, my name is Leonie Spargo, and I'd like to thank you for giving me this opportunity. One of the greatest things about living in a democracy is that we can speak up when decisions or proposals are mooted which interfere with or disadvantage groups in the community. They may have gender, racial, sporting, religious or ageist origins, but we are allowed to voice our concerns, so thank you. I wrote my submission in early March, full of fire and brimstone and anger. Then the world changed. COVID-19's presence was felt hot on the heels of the mosque attack. And we are now encouraged to live safely, to work together in harmony, to be kind to each other, and to respect our differences. There's no room for discrimination. We are one. In your proposed plan for the hub, I note the destruction of our bowling club was due to begin 2035. I respectfully ask for an extension of our lease, which is due to expire in 8 years' time. Taking into account the average age of our members, that would see most of us out. However, the majority of us are rather more forward-focused. We want to leave the beauty and the historical significance of our club for future bowlers. And we wish to coexist side by side with the proposed hub, a healthy mix of all age groups, enjoying one of Ashburton's amazing facilities. My proposal is instead to move the maintenance depot, which is not a thing of beauty, to the Grigg Street space which you had put aside for us, where you can provide adequate parking for the valued ground staff, and to build the hub next to the bowling club and the aviary. You've been recognised by central government for your good governance and shovel-ready proposals, and my hope is that you show that good governance towards our club. Thank you.
Thank you. Questions, councillors? Mr. Mayor. Oh, Councillor Cameron.
Thank you. Thank you for your submission. I've read your submission. Just want to reflect a moment on the aviary. And I note that you say the aviary is not attractive, that you'd like to keep the aviary and move it. Do you suggest we move it along to where the hub is?
No, I suggest you leave it where it is. Just refurbish it, and if the hub was in the maintenance depot, then all of that and the playground over the pathway is just an ideal place for young and old.
So have you got any suggestions with regards to the aviary? How would you like to see that?
No, I'd just like to see it looking better than it is.
Yeah. To be fair, we've had a lot of feedback about it.
I'm sure you have.
Mr. Mayor.
Yeah, my question too is also on the aviary, and in today's world, do you think having an aviary is appropriate?
Probably not. We're not supposed to cage any of those species. We're not supposed to cage the human species either. But I do know that a lot of children enjoy the aviary. You often see children there with their parents looking at the animals. So I don't know, we can't take away all the things that people enjoy just because it's no longer politically correct.
I do note in other submissions on the aviary that some people are suggesting a different type of aviary, not necessarily caged, but yeah. So we'll take your suggestions on board when we deliver it. Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you very much for your submission. I now call on Tony Blaine, and the submission is on page 92, councillors. No, sorry, 42.
councillors. As the chairman has suggested, my name is Tony Blaine, and I'm here this morning to voice my opposition to the suggestion that the Ashburton Bowling Club be repositioned. As a bowling club member and a past president, this club have been on this site for 125 years. It is beyond my comprehension that we should have to move and set up a new facility. My view that the present site of the bowling complex is the jewel in the crown of the domain, and to be taken away would be criminal. As for the suggestion that a cafe take the place of the bowling club greens, I question, does the council have the right to set up a commercial business in opposition to similar businesses in the area? To replace our present setup would cost hundreds of thousands of dollars, which obviously the club would never be able to afford. The replacement would involve a synthetic carpet, obviously, because in our present setup, the cost of maintaining our lawns are large. And if there's a suggestion that the council is going to pay for the replacement, well, it would have to be up to the gold standard, and that would be synthetic greens and a new pavilion. During the bowling season, the complex can be used every day. With half-day triples, there is 96 bowlers playing from all around the county. The pavilion is used for private functions of members and includes funerals, birthdays, parties and anniversaries, card afternoons and Christmas functions. Also in the past we have run evening tournaments to involve the business community. It's a short submission, Mr. Chairman, but I had to take the opportunity to be present and question the district plan, the domain plan as to moving our bowling green.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Tony, thank you for your submission, but reading through it, you're quite keen to keep the bowling green where it is, but if council decides to shift it and pays for it, you would be happy. Do I understand that correct? That's how I read it.
Well, this is a personal view.
Okay, yeah, that's fine.
And if we had to move, we would expect a new complex, and that to me would be acceptable.
Yeah. Another question, you talk about the cost of the maintenance of the bowling greens now,
Yes.
and I know that it's quite expensive. How much would it be, or what, if you compare it to synthetic, how easy would that be, or the difference in between the two of them? Would you know?
Well, with a live lawn, and our greens keeper is here, and he would be able to fill us in on more detail, but it's ongoing and constant. Whereas with a synthetic material, it's low maintenance.
Thank you.
Councillor Rawlinson.
Thank you. Thank you, Tony, for your presentation. Just a question around the greens. Is yours the only live grass green in Ashburton? Are the others all synthetic?
No, there's one other synthetic facility at the Elton Bowling Club. and that's an all round year, all year
Yeah.
for surface.
So if
So there's only the one synthetic green in Canterbury County.
So supplementary, so if a bowling club, even if it wasn't you, if someone was building a new bowling club today, would they always now put in a synthetic green?
That would be my view, absolutely.
Great.
Yes.
Thank you.
Councillors, Mr. Blaine, thank you for your submission.
Thank you very much.
And I'll call on Mr. Roger Heriot, and councillors. The submission is on page 120. Roger, the floor is yours.
Good morning, Mr. Mayor and councillors. My name is Roger Heriot. You'll see by my submission that I don't not favour some of the work that's going to be carried out or would like to be carried out by the council. But I am against the shifting of the bowling club. One of the reasons, it's a good outlook. People look over the fence, they admire it. Anyone that bowls in another place around New Zealand say how lovely it is and how lucky we are. A lot of my things are going to address, in some ways, questions. Councillor Brahm asked about shifting us. There's nowhere in the domain that I would fancy to be shifted. If you look down your costings, when you get to the bowling club, you've got no money, or no money against it. Now, it's close to 6 figures, or it would be 6 figures at this point of time. You asked Joe that, you know, it's 28 years out, or it's this far out, how would we go then? Well, if it's 6 figures now, you can almost double it. Now, where's the council, if they want to shift it, going to find that money? You'll see in my submission also that we touched on the depot and the aviary. Now, I'd like to see birds maintained. I think it's good for the children. I think there's got to be another outlook at how it's done. And if you had to maintain a hub on that side of the road, which I'm against because of having to cross as people come in there, I drive in there to play bowls, and you'll suddenly see a mother have to grab a child because it takes off. As well as they behave, every now and again they want to get over to that playground, and you see them have to grab it. Now, but if it was on that side, I'd like to see you build a hub on that northern end where the aviary is, with a mezzanine floor, so that if people buy a coffee or have a coffee, can go up and sit out and look over the bowling green and watch what's going on and enjoy the beauty of that area. So there's not a lot I can add to it. Yes, you have got some things in the plan that I like, but the bowling green, no. And we couldn't afford it, and I would say in 20 years' time, neither would the council. And there's nowhere in the domain that I would like to see it go. If you're looking down at the old tennis courts down that end, as Joe said, there's trees, there's roots. You know, it's not possible. Now, you said ours is live. There is also artificial, but artificial is not costing you day by day at the time, but you've still got to put that money away. Because I've played around artificial clubs in New Zealand, and every 10 years, especially down south, they're having to look to put them down. So that's another costing again of renewing a bowling green. So that's about all, but I'm willing to take any questions.
Thanks, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Roger, for your submission. Thank you. I read in someone else's submission that our bowling green in Ashburton is of a very high quality and a very good standard, so it would not be easily sort of duplicated in another site. Have I understood that correctly?
You have understood it correctly. We're very lucky you brought back voluntary labour. The voluntary labour around it, our greenkeeper, who's sitting behind us now, the work and effort that's put in by everyone is admired. And as I say, if you just go for a drive in Christchurch and go into a bowling green and have a look at ours and have a look at theirs, at the quality of it, there's nothing meets it, nothing matches it.
Thank you. You supplement, Mr. Chair, please. Also, you mentioned 6 figures. Have you actually had that costed professionally, or that's your best guesstimate?
No, it's more than a best estimate. We know what's costing people. We talk to clubs that are putting in or
So
having
what
to
are we
renew
looking at?
greens.
High 6 figures or low 6? What give us a bit of a...
I wouldn't say. I would say it'd be about an average figure. It depends on what you want to put, what sort of club rooms you want to put.
Low to me if you're going to build a new clubhouse and put down a green. That would seem...
Yes, you've got to put down a green. You've got to put down your green. You've got to build a clubhouse.
Do your landscaping and all this.
Yep.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Mayor.
Thanks, Mr. Chairman. And it's a general question really on the bowling clubs in Ashburton. How many bowling clubs are there in Ashburton, Roger? Do you know?
In town itself, you've got Allington, MSA, and Hampstead.
3.
Yeah. And us, of course, yes.
4. And the others, are they full? If that's the word to use?
They average their membership pretty much the same as we. I think Allington would have the most, but that's because it's combined now and become a sporting club. So they've got the other clubs coming in and using that, and using their club rooms with able to use the bar and things like that. So if you take their figures that way, yes, they've got more. But as bowlers, and actual bowlers, I don't think their membership would be much higher than ours.
Good, thank you.
Thank you very much for your submission.
Thank you, councillors and Mr. Mayor.
I now call on Mr. Murray Anderson, and the submission is on page 5. And I'm taking a contingency here. Mitch Goodall, he's not in the room, is he? Sorry? No, but it doesn't hurt me to ask. Yep. Sorry, Councillor. Yes? Councillor Rawlinson? Oh, right. Mr. Anderson, councillors, page 5 is the submission.
Excuse me. Yeah, Mr. Mayor, Chairman, councillors, thank you for the opportunity to speak. Now, you have my submission there, and I was a bit surprised when I saw it a week ago, like one or two others. I had problems with my iPad at the time, and I did half the submission and did it on this document, and then the second half I picked up this document, which are different, but so it's this document that is taken off, and I've just given you some notes now, and I take that as my submission. The other one is basically correct, but it got mixed up a bit, so thank you. So Central Hub Space, the page 2021. The Ashburton Bowling Club has a proud history and has made a significant contribution to our community for over 120 years. The present location is an integral part of this area. In fact, activities around the club have fostered over the years, due in part because of bowls. It has been a good ambassador for our park, for our town. Thank you so much. Every sport in the domain has received some significant council grant money, which I've personally supported over the years, with the exception of the Ashburton Bowling Club. There are 3 other bowling clubs on the council reserve ground, and they have also received significant council grants over the years. Please do not insult the bowling club by building on our green. The paddling pool, the present location is okay. If the pool is getting tired,
A new pool just to the west of it could be built for the same reasons of why the present pool was put there. Do not cram all activities together. The open space between the pool and the playground activities is an extremely popular spot for family groups. The Works Department, the activity that is out of place in this area is the Works Depot. A large number of private staff cars are parked out in the public areas, while there is considerable room within the enclosed depot. Also, a considerable number of council work vehicles coming in and going several times a day. I suggest the one option to relocate where the council are suggesting the bowling club should relocate. This could be in part or in total. The central hub. I recommend the buildings that are to be on the same side as the children's playground. Do not have pedestrian traffic, especially children crossing the path of motor traffic. I recommend that this centre do not have granular buildings as suggested on page 21. We must have quality facilities such as EA Networks, Event Centre, the new council building with additional community meeting space provided, the Ashburton College with community meeting rooms and that are available, and we could give many more examples. Facilities must be well utilised. We cannot afford the duplication of our services. The proposed activities on page 21 with the $300,000 budget, you would be dreaming with that sort of at that figure. I recommend that the hub location be west of the playground where the water play 3 is suggested on the map. Water features can be expensive and have a checkered history in our career. And have a checkered history. I left my glasses at home as well on the map. Water features can be expensive. Fortunately, the council has now agreed not to relocate a very successful one, the Three Rivers on East Street and the Domain, where you're supporting to relocate it to the Domain. The new vehicle entrance, I strongly support a new entrance off Walnut Avenue to the main car park, page 20. My recommendation would be to bring this project forward as a priority. It would help set the scene for future development and patronage in this area. The total domain or park is a vital hub in total. It is a great asset for our community. I support the comments on page 16, being 5 main precincts or clusters, all of equal importance. The challenge for us is to keep that balance. Footpaths, I suggest there are too many new footpaths to be built. The ponds, I agree with further bank stability, but keep the pond surrounds open. I note there are submissions asking for native planting around the ponds. natives have a habit of doing extremely well amongst water. So keep it open. The band rotunda, do not build a band rotunda. They were out of date in the 1950s. As I've said before, the importance of keeping a balance. I agree with the open spaces of previous speaker. But just one example of the balance, referring to band rotundas, etc. We built an open stage in the oval, what is known as the oval, the important activities that go on there, and it is tremendous. But I see that it's not getting as much use as I would like to see it, as it has done in the recent past. But once again, duplication of services, keep a balance over the whole domain. And so thank you very much, councillors.
I'm just wondering if I could have the assistance of staff, please. There was a map up on the up there at one stage, and in a submission, Mr. Anderson says, I recommend the hub location be west of the playground where water play 3 is suggested. Can that be pointed out to me to refresh my mind, please?
Well, it's just to the west of where your one of your.
Well, we have a map, Murray. Just hang on. We have a map.
Well, it's on. I mentioned the page, I think.
Yeah. No. They had a map up on the before.
While you're looking at that, I mean, there are options, and it could be to the right of the playground, but I favour to the left, partly because of the entrance, or proposed entrance, I should say. About 7 or 8 years ago, the council came to us wanting to relocate the entrance off Walnut Avenue, just west of the present paddling pool. Now that was going to be crossing open ground in that area. I was strongly against it, but I'm strongly in favour of the new proposed, which we suggested at the time.
Okay. Oh well, don't worry, Tony, if it's
Just the spot where you're talking about, or close to it. I don't know why the council put that well on the spot it did. However, it's there now, and we've got to live with it. That's the spot I'm talking about, just to the west.
right. Okay.
It's handy entrance to off the proposed entrance from Walnut Avenue.
Thank you. Councillor McMillan.
Thank you, Mr. Anderson. Just a question. You mentioned that the Ashburton Bowling Club has not received any council grants. Have you applied for any, and were you turned down? Is that why you haven't received them, or has the club applied for any council grants?
Yes, thank you. I was making the point of how it's always stood on its own responsibilities, but yes, there was one occasion we applied for. I think you're just going through that application at the moment. What do you call it? It wasn't a big figure, but we were turned down. And the question before, how many bowling clubs in the town, in the district? There's 7. 4 of them are on council reserve ground. Probably the question was asked earlier on too about the lease, the importance of the lease, and I certainly had experience with domain leases and every lease in the domain, I should have said the Tynwell leases and the leases on this domain, and I had no knowledge of that, and our bowling club had no knowledge that lease had been changed or renewed to the period it is. Yes, I assume it was changed in recent years in 1989 with the review of local government, when the responsibility went from the Crown, the ownership, the councils managed it on behalf of the Crown before that, so the leases were then transferred. The ownership was transferred to local ownership, the district council, not the Crown.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Lovett?
Yes, thank you for your submission. You've actually touched on a lot of things here and good comments. And you like to see, we've had a lot of comments come in about the hub, whether we should have one or not, and you're suggesting shifting it. What form do you think it should be providing for the future? You know, because we're looking at meeting rooms and stuff here. What's your opinion? What we should be providing over there in a hub?
Well, I think I sort of mentioned that. Thank you. That. Not to have granular buildings as in this area. We have educational facilities already in our town that I referred to. Why build centres for community groups, education facilities, learning centre, I think is the word that you use in the document, education learning centre.
Okay, no, thank you.
I do not support duplication which threatens a lesser usage of the good facilities that we already have.
Thank you.
Just before we go to Mayor Brown, I've received further feedback. If you can put your hand between your mouth and your microphone, the people can hear you. Mayor Brown.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Welcome, Murray. Great submission. You talk about the entry off Walnut Ave, and NZTA have told us that they're going to upgrade the lights at that intersection. So that would probably, you say bring it forward, that would be done, I would imagine, when that intersection is upgraded with lights. So the two should meet together, so that should work well there. You talk about the footpaths, and there's too many footpaths to be built. You think there's enough footpaths there now in the domain with no additional?
There is room for additional footpaths, but I don't. I think with the number of new proposed footpaths, the overall in the domain, I think you're extending that particular item too much. People enjoy walking across particular areas, not being restricted to footpaths totally.
Right. So we just have a look at the number of footpaths, but there could be a few more, but not too many more.
That's correct.
Okay.
Yeah. I support that.
Thank you.
And regards to in your plan, I see the bringing the entrance in off Walnut Avenue. I think it's 10 years. That's why I'm saying I see it necessary as a priority to set the scene in this particular area.
So, and with the upgrade of the Walnut Ave State Highway 1, the entrance of State Highway 1 was going to change, so it would have to be done at the same time, I would imagine. Yeah. Which is supposedly to be tendered later this year for that intersection of traffic.
I feel quite strongly about it. I see NZTA supporting still the left turn entrance off there. Perhaps on reflection, perhaps it's not as important as I thought it was if you're going to divert traffic off the highway through our residential town. But I still hope that common sense will prevail there. Thank you.
Okay. Councillor Cameron, did I see your light do a flicker?
You did.
Did. Okay. Any further submission? Any further questions? Thank you, Mr. Anderson.
Thank you.
We've got a wee way. I just wondered, Mitch Goodshoe hasn't arrived, has he, by any chance? Good all. No. Okay, we'll break for morning tea, councillors, and we're back here at 11 according to the program. How about we make it 3 minutes to 11, and the Chief Executive will give us instructions further about our hand and our mouth and our microphone. open, and I'll ask Mr. Mitch Goodall if he could come forward, please, and with any support staff he may have. Sorry, councillors, forgot to tell you, it's on page 95 of your submission booklet. Hang on a minute, Roger, could you just push the microphone a bit closer, please?
Fine. So better.
Thank you. Mitch, the floor is yours.
Right. No, leave it. Leave it. Leave it. Leave it.
We haven't got the time. Quickly. Put it on.
Right.
Would Mitch's caregiver like to come forward to help, maybe?
No.
Where do you press it? Seven?
Uh,
Come on, Mitch. Where do you start it? Mitch.
Deputy Mayor, would you like to assist, please?
You've got that on the tablet? Yes, he has. How are you going? Do you want me to read it for you?
yes, please.
Would you like me to do that?
Yes, please.
Okay. My wife and I have only been in Ashburton for 7 years when we made the decision to move to Ashburton. Being very keen bowlers, we made it a priority to pick a club and to join that club. When we visited Ashburton Club, we were blown away by the amazing setup and surrounds, whether player or spectators, the friendliness of the members, and the magnificent 2 greens, which are amongst the best in the South Island. If you as a council think that by offering the club 2 sites where we can replicate what we already have, you are in cuckoo land. It would cost megabucks. It would be totally cost prohibitive. Why not build your hub some other place, e.g. at the beginning of the domain where the paddling pool is or where the workshop and aviary is? It is just not right and fair that you can take over the club just because you can after 120 years and all the work that has been done by the members. If this goes ahead, it will be the death of the Ashburton Bowling Club. Great.
Thank you.
Thank you, councillor. Do any councillors have any questions? Councillor Cameron.
Thanks for your submission, Mr. Goodall. So you feel you've been here for 7 years, is that right? Did you
Yes.
say? Yes. So have you felt that the bowling club's also given you sort of a social type aspect to coming to Ashburton or coming back to Ashburton? Has there been another benefit besides the exercise and the skill and,
Social.
thank you.
Councillor McMillan?
Thank you. And is that your only form of sort of activity or exercise that you do, being at the bowling club?
Yes.
Yes. Oh, that's great to hear. Thank you.
Any further questions? Mr. Goodall, can I thank you very much for coming and for the caregivers' assistance as well. Thank you. Okay, I'll call on Irene McKnight. Councillors, it's submission 175 in your book, Irene. Sorry.
Thank you.
Thank you, Joe. The floor is yours, Irene. Welcome.
Thank you very much for this opportunity, Mr. Mayor and your council. I greatly appreciate it because I am not a member of the Ashburton Club, just to be a little bit different. But I am here in support of them because I am a selector for Mid-Canterbury and Canterbury Country. And when you bring teams to a lovely little town like Ashburton, really and truly it gives me great pride to take them to the Ashburton Club. The greens are magnificent, and I've been playing for over 30 years, and I'll be honest, I've played from Auckland down to Invercargill, and honestly, those greens in the garden just are better than anything in town, and the only one that can hold a candle to them anywhere near it is Queenstown, and that is also in the gardens. It's when you walk in, the ambience, you walk in, the gardens are beautiful, aren't they? We all agree. You walk in there, you've got to play good bowls. You really do. And then, I don't know, you look around and heavens, you've got the history there as well. That lovely old building, it might be, but it does all the job it's got to do, doesn't it? It's lovely, it's friendly. So I'm very much against shifting that wonderful facility. I really am. I think it's quite a star for Ashburton just to have it there. And what else? And really and truly, if I had to improve anything at the Ashburton Green, it would really be to, I don't know exactly what you call that garden in front of the Averys. I might call it, being nice, a wildflower garden. But could that not be made into an extra car park for the bowling club? It's the only negative I feel. We're not allowed to park where we interfere with the playgrounds. And this is as a visitor to the green. Could that perhaps not be improved? Because I don't know really what that piece of ground is in front of the Aviary, but it certainly is not attractive. And it would be the only part of the gardens. So that's really all I wish to say. Just please think carefully. It truly is a gem to have the Ashburton Club there. And it gives me great pleasure when people, even though I don't belong there, I still have great pleasure in having our teams come and play there.
Okay.
So thank you. Thank you for this opportunity.
Don't go away, Irene.
I'm not allowed to go away.
Councillors may have a question. Councillor Latham.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you for your submission, Faye. That's great, and I take on board what you said. But you also made a note that about reopening the eyesight downtown, and we don't need any more cafes. So, because of what you've just said, that you've played on greens all around New Zealand, and you're a selector and everything. What would be your main reason for not worrying about cafes in the domain?
Well, I just think we are oversupplied now, Mr. Council. I really do. I think we've got them all along the street from Nosh to, whatever it is, Harris and all the rest of them. Every time you go and fill your car with petrol, you can get a coffee. You can go and buy a burger and get a coffee. Do we honestly need that lovely building changed when it's serving such a great, it's great. It really is. It's serving a great purpose. And it's the history of it as well. I mean, we've lost a lot, haven't we, with the earthquake? You've got to hang on to what we've got, in my opinion.
Thank you for that.
Thank you.
Further questions? Councillor Lovett.
I was just going to ask, because of our bowling green is held in high estate, is it bringing in a lot of other people from other clubs around New Zealand to come here and play?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yes, we have players that come from Central Otago to Kaikoura. That's a nice area, isn't it? And believe me, we're very proud to have them come. Yeah.
Okay. Further questions? Thank you, Irene.
Thank you.
Well done.
Thank you.
And now move on to Mr. Trevor Watson, and on my sheet it says submission on page 271, but I strongly suggest you try 270, councillors, if you're on the computer. Welcome, Trevor. The floor is yours.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor and councillors. I don't agree with the suggestion that the bowling club should be shifted to another site to make way for the hub. Bowling club has been there for 120 years and the cost of shifting it is prohibitive. One estimate said it would cost $2 million to shift the green in the clubhouse to another location. I've helped to build a new green and clubhouse somewhere else, so I know the work and cost involved. Unless the council paid for the shift, the club would have to close down. I don't think the ratepayers would be happy with that, so the only solution would be to build the hub on a different site. There are several that are just as good, which will save $2 million and earn the council brownie points with the ratepayers. Thank you.
Right. Questions, councillors? Questions? Councillor McMillan.
Thank you, and thank you for your submission. So you've written in your submission there are other suitable sites for the hub. So where are you thinking? What spots are you thinking would be a good...
Well, there's one suggestion where the works department is now would be a suitable place, nearer the main road, and that would be more suitable.
What about where the bowling club in this plan is proposed to go? Would you think that... Are you thinking what could that then be used for the works department, or?
I don't know. I just think that the cost of shifting the bowling club is too much.
Yep. Okay. Thank you.
Okay. Further questions? Thank you very much for coming to present your view, Mr.
Thank
Watson.
you.
It's much appreciated. We've now got contingency time, and at 11:40 we have Marion Harrison. Is she? She's here. Would you like to come forward earlier?
Oh, sorry. It's actually very hard to hear back there.
Sorry. I'm trying on the hand widths and everything. Marion, sorry you're on earlier, but welcome and thank you. Please, the floor is yours. The submission is 116 in your book, councillors.
Well, thank you for the opportunity to speak. There's two reasons why I feel quite strongly about alterations to the domain. Credit to the council for thinking ahead, but there is an awful lot of money being spent on several different projects all at once without starting on something else. I think the domain is a great site. It provides wonderful gardens and wonderful sports areas. Naturally, I am against any, what would you say, removal of the bowling area. I don't play bowl, so that's not why I'm saying this. I just think there's a lot of money being spent on it, a lot of maintenance over the years. They have done their bit looking after it, and the cost of shifting it would be quite outrageous. And I also think it is very short-sighted that you can only think of that one place to have your hub. There's several places in the domain where you could have it. So that's really all I have to say about it. I do strongly object to the bowling green being shifted. The hub, when you think about it, is another building to be maintained, isn't it? And, you know, that's something that's got to be thought about as well. It actually really disgusts me that you would think of shifting it. It really, really does. And of starting on yet another project when we're still paying for numerous ones. Anyway, that's all I have to say. Thank you very much.
Councillor Rawlinson, you have a question.
Thank you, and thank you, Marion, for coming in. Just, you've mentioned about the hub. Have you got some ideas of where you would like to see the
Yes,
hub?
I have. I suggested it in my letter. I can't really quite explain it. You've got the area where the soccer, I think, used to be played, or maybe still is. There's the playground in one area, and up in the corner by the trees, I think it'd be a lovely place to have a hub under there. People could sit and have their cup of coffee or whatever and watch the sports and watch the kids, hopefully look after their kids. And also you want people to come into the town centre, and yet you're offering another eating place out of town.
Thank you. You've just answered the second part of my question.
Marion, I'll excuse you if you would like to come and show us on the map where you think the Works Department can go.
Me follow a map? Come on, Angus.
No, well, I've actually asked for the map to be there for the sole purpose that you can be totally explicit. Yep. Okay. Thank you. Good. Councillor Latham, you have a question.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Marion, what would your thoughts be about the necessity to have a hub at all? Would you?
I'm a deafie, so.
Oh, that's all right. What would your thoughts be about the necessity to have a hub at all?
I don't see the necessity, but then I haven't looked at all the pros and cons about it either, whereas you guys would have.
No opinion as this stage.
I don't see it's necessary.
Councillor Brown.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Marion, nice to see you, and good to hear from you. But my question is, in your submission, you know, you're telling us that you don't want to change it because you like it the way it is. But looking in your submission, in 2048, people might like to change it. We are now in 2020. We try to do the same. We try to make a plan up to now 2048. So we don't need a plan now, but we need one in 48? Or do I read this wrong?
It might be completely different in 48, and I tell you what, I won't care.
Done. Thank you for your honesty.
Thank you. Is that...
Any further questions, councillors? No, thank you, Marion. Very good. Thank you. Graham Taylor, is he present? Graham, come forward, please. And Graham's submission is on page 250. Graham, the floor is yours when you're ready.
Good morning, everybody, and thank you for letting me come and speak. I've got funny eyes. I've got to take glasses off to read a paper. Just to reiterate what Faye said earlier on, these are the best greens in the South Island. I, amongst several others, have a bus tour, bowling trip at the end of January, and we go from Nelson to Invercargill, and it's very rare to find anything better than what we've got. Anyway, most definitely do not agree where the hub should be. As Treasurer of the Bowling Club, I am concerned of the financial strain it would put on our members to find the $1 to $2 million to build new greens, fences, club rooms and surroundings on a new site, which I don't think we have a suitable new site in the domain on account of all the trees that are there. The council is supposed to promote recreation activities. I suggest the hub should be built on the spare land just above the children's playground. And there I mean just close to the burnt out toilets that you have there at the moment. So where parents or guardians can sit and watch their children play in safety and do not have to cross the traffic way to get to the hub to come up with their parents. That would put the hub on the same side as the paddling pool. The bowling club is an icon in the domain which is used by several thousand bowlers a year from far and wide who have commented on the beautiful layout of the greens and surrounds. These people include rep players from Mid-Canterbury, South Canterbury, North Otago, Christchurch and North Canterbury. We've also hosted the New Zealand bowling team. I'd be happy with the proposed entrance off the Walnut Avenue, which would make the entrance to the domain a lot more accessible. And I'm also happy where the paddling pool is. I don't see the need to build a new one. I'd just like to reiterate that the bowling green gets used by people all over the South Island. Thank you.
Councillors, any questions? Councillor Lovett.
I was just going to thank you for your submission. I was just going to make a comment. Most of the bowling ones are suggesting other places for this hub to be moved to, other than their bowling green. Do you feel there is a need for a hub in the domain?
A small coffee shop would not go amiss, but to use the whole bowling club rooms for a small coffee shop would be just a complete waste of money. And as I suggested, it wants to be somewhere where the parents and guardians can look out and watch their children play. I've taken my children and grandchildren there, and even though I'm a bowling member, I don't sit over in the bowling club and watch them. I sit in a position where I can keep an eye on them in case there's any problems with them whatsoever.
Thank you. And the other question I was just going to ask, in the future, is there any possibility that the bowling club rooms, that you could be able to sell coffee to the public that are using the playground?
That's something that I cannot comment on, because if to do that, you'd have to have it manned 8 hours a day. Otherwise, you'd be wasting your time.
Mr. Taylor, you're the treasurer of the club, am I right?
No, I'm a past president.
Past
We've got lots of past presidents here at the moment,
okay.
But and we've also got the present president of the bowling club.
Okay, treasurer, sorry.
Yes, I'm the treasurer.
Okay.
I have been for 4 years.
Well, I've actually been saving this question for you, sir. And the question is the membership stable? In other words, as people leave the bowling club, are there new members coming in, or is the membership getting smaller?
We're dealing with elderly people, and we cannot forecast how long they're going to be with us. But we do have new members coming in all the time. Example, last season, at the start of last season, we had 11 new members. And we are getting new members coming in and signing up. We just had one just the other day wanting to come and play at our Great Greens. So looking into the future is just, we don't know.
Right. But in the last 2 or 3 years, there have been more new members coming to the club.
We're probably 3 or 4 down over the last 5 years.
That's pretty good.
It has been suggested that we join another club, but that'd be like telling the Crusaders to go and play with the Highlanders.
What do you reckon, Hamish? Ooh. Councillor Rawlinson.
I agree with your comment. I'm a born and bred Highlander. That's not my question, though. The question is around encouraging youth. And I mean, we see in the media young people playing bowls nowadays. And if you're watching bowls on TV, you can see them. So do you do anything about, like, contacting college or the schools to encourage youth to come and join your club?
Yes, as one of the previous speakers, our past president, Joe Reich said he has contact with 3 schools at least, and when I was watching it on the TV before I came up here, in which I must add that it was hard to hear what people were saying, but there's other schools that come and play at our green, and often we have people, likes of the school committees, come at Christmas time, come and have social events, and they're just over the moon about the fact that we can or could take school children when we're talking to the teachers.
Great, because that's the foundation of the next round of members, isn't it, really?
That's correct.
Thank you.
Further questions, councillors? Graham, thank you very much for presenting your case.
Thank you for listening to me.
No problem. Tony, I think we've run out of submitters until Mr. Pretty shows, is that right? Do we have any submitters that are, to your knowledge, are here now, but not appearing until this afternoon? No. Okay. So I'm actually forced, am I, to adjourn until Mr. Pretty comes, or until 12:10 PM, is that right? Councillors, I adjourn the hearing.